Anyway, life is great in South Carolina. And Tricia, what you said that caught my ear a moment ago was about the last 30 years, things have changed. Well, that's the story for the whole state. It is just remarkable how far we've come in the last 30 years. It's all of a sudden, like things we've been doing for years have all of a sudden reached a critical mass or gotten a grip or something. Because in this job, I've moved around all over the state, maybe you do too. But there are little towns and cities and even just communities that are cleaning up and adding on and building things. And it's really remarkable to see. Hartsville, have you been to Hartsville? Have you been to the governor's school over there? They got nothing but geniuses, wall to wall, young people. They inventing things that I got no idea what they are, but they can explain them to you. And the governor's school for arts and something up in Greenville is the same thing, enormous talent. But Hartsville is beautiful. Spartanburg is growing. Anybody been to Greenville in the last, you remember 30 years ago? I remember practicing law, my daddy and I used to go up there. We'd stay in the Poinsett Hotel. It was beautiful. Then a few years later, it was condemned. And they had people sleeping on the floor and trash all over the place and had to yell up, it was condemned. And now you go up, it's been revitalized. The downtown is revitalized. Back then, 30 years ago, you walk down Main Street and half the buildings, half the storefronts would be empty. Now you have people living over those storefronts and businesses downstairs, and a night on Main Street in Greenville, just as one example of many, is a lot of fun. There's all sorts of stuff going on. And they cleaned up the Reedy River. I remember years ago it caught on fire. It had all this trash in the river, caught on fire. But now it's just beautiful, and they built that walking bridge. Anybody been across that, you get kind of a funny feeling because it does move. But it is just beautiful. But it's happening all over the state. And I think it's because of, like you in this room, people with vision who really care about what happens in their town and happens in their state. They are following a vision of great prosperity and happiness that is taking root in South Carolina, and I can promise you people all over the world have noticed. And that's why we have businesses from all over the world that can go anywhere in the world and invest, whether it's fortune of generations of a family or families, or whether it's corporate wealth, whatever it is, they're willing to put hundreds of millions and billions of dollars into places in South Carolina. And I'll tell you what they tell me, because I have this conversation a lot. I ask them, why is it that you have decided to come to South Carolina? Or what do we need to show you to convince you to come to South Carolina? And it's always the same sorts of things. There's our three research universities, USC, Clemson, and MUSC, that collaborate with each other. That's a key word. A lot of states, not only they don't even talk to each other, but they don't collaborate. Well, our people work like a team. Of course, they say in South Carolina you have to be real careful because you might be related to most anybody and not know about it. In fact, there was a young lawyer years ago, he said, had a little joke, he said, a country lawyer, he said, used to get people come in and they'd often ask him the same kind of question. And it was something like this, they'd say, well, lawyer, I got a question. If we married in South Carolina and divorced in Georgia, are we still cousins? But that sort of familiarity with each other, those sort of relationships, and sometimes they go after generation and generation. Your parents' friends become your friends, and one generation after another, it leads to great strength, flexibility, and because of that, we can turn on a dime. And because of that, we have collaborations among all institutions. Wilbur Ross, the U.S. Secretary of Commerce, has said it many times. And we're supercharging them now. The state is taking some action, as well as a lot of businesses with internships and apprenticeships. And we got the law changed, the federal law, where the state can now determine what the requirements are for these apprenticeships, so the business can get that. I think it's a $1,000 tax break on each apprentice. But that technical college system is something to see. And just 2 points on that. There's one place up in Clemson, right across from ICAR, the International Center for Automotive Research, the International Center for Automotive Research. Now this place here, my prediction is this could be the same thing for cyber right here, because of what's happening across the river. And it doesn't matter if it's across the river, across the fence, across a bunch of trees, across a road, it's right there. The road doesn't make any difference. And so this town, this city, this whole area is right in the middle of cyber USA, it looks to me. And we know that the military is putting a lot of resources in here. I can't remember, it's an astronomical figure. It's a huge sum of the entire expenditure is going right here in this area. So that's something big for here. Up in Clemson with automotive research, across the way there's a new place called, I think it's Advanced Center for Manufacturing. And here's something that they have there, and they don't have this anywhere else. They have BMW. By the way, BMW up in Spartanburg, in Greville, produces a new BMW every 61.7 seconds. And they're expanding that capacity now. If you haven't been to that plant, it's something to see. All these plants that we have, all these big businesses, you don't see overalls and grease and toolboxes. You can wear your clothes you have on now, but you got to take your computer if you're going to work, because that's how they work in there, and they're good paying jobs. But up there, what do they have? This is just one example. They have PhDs from Clemson, researchers and developers that are working with the same from BMW on BMWs that are delivered over to this facility. Some without the drivetrain, others without the electrical equipment, others without all the computers. For the students there and the faculty working together to invent new ways to make those things work better. And who's in there? PhDs and researchers from BMW, the same professors from Clemson, PhD candidates, master's candidates, bachelor's candidates, technical college students, and high school students, all in there, shoulder to shoulder, working on those vehicles. The older, experienced ones, of course, they know what they're doing. They know what's in the books. They've seen things. They've invented things. And the young ones, of course, know no limits. They don't know they can't do something, so, of course, they go ahead and do it. But that is the only place in the world where you have that combination, in South Carolina. Come on down the road a little bit to Columbia. Just 2 weeks ago, we had an announcement at the University of South Carolina. Siemens had given $628 million worth of research software, analytical stuff to the university as a gift just a couple of years ago. IBM has opened their National Data Analytics headquarters in Columbia at the corner of Blossom and Assembly Street in a university building. Also Samsung, when Samsung came to Newberry, they entered into collaborative arrangements with Clemson and USC. They're on the campus too, in the same building. The building looks much like this one we're in now. And just the other day, Laksawa, I'm not saying it's a Japanese company, they make robots. They're in there too. With the academic power of the University of South Carolina, they're all working together, shoulder to shoulder. They call it the Data Transformational Lab, is what they call it. You know how many of them there are in South Carolina? There's one in South Carolina. How many in the rest of the country? 0. How many in the rest of the world? 0. Now you remember the story about the city slicker that went to the circus and he saw Jumbo the huge elephant, and then Jumbo had a little tiny chain around his leg and it was hooked to a little tiny stake. And the city slicker says to the ringmaster, "Why in the world doesn't that elephant just walk off? That thing can't hold him. Are y'all crazy?" He said, the man said, "Well, we put that little chain on him when he was a baby, and try as he might, he couldn't get loose, so now he doesn't try anymore." Well, that's my point. I can remember growing up, how many times did I hear people say, "Poor state, and we can't do anything." Well, let me tell you, if you ever hear anybody say that again, run them out of town, because they are dead wrong. And all we have to do is think big and work together and collaborate with these institutions we have, and there's no stopping this state. We got a magnificent port. It's getting deeper. We have this, it's the quickest port now. We can turn around, we can get a container on a ship or a container off a ship and on a truck and on the rail in 26 minutes. Out west it takes 2.5 hours. That's the fastest in the whole country. And we're getting ready to go to 52 feet at low tide, which means the biggest ships in the world can come in. And some of those ships carry, you won't believe this, 23,000 containers. Hard to believe. They go in and out of there right now before we do the dredging with 13,000 containers, if you can believe that. And what do we have in the Port of Charleston? We have two inland ports, they call them. CSX runs up through Dillon. Norfolk Southern runs up through Greer, as you know, and crosses 85, the other crosses 95. So you can take a container off a ship there, put it on rail, and send it up there in a truck and pick it up at either Greer or Dillon on 85 or 95, and they don't even have to go to the port. That saves somewhere 400 miles in Greer and about 290 or something from Dillon. No other state has two inland ports. No other state has a harbor that is going right now to 52 feet that's wide enough to have two ships coming in and out at the same time. And New York, New Jersey will be that deep soon. They're having to raise a bridge to get the big ships in there. But we will have the most competitive, the most dynamic port on the East Coast real soon. All those things, and of course this is a low union state. They're not interested in unions here because we have a good relationship between management and employees. All these things, and you combine that with the mountains on one end and the river and the ocean on the other, and all these rivers that you look out the window and see, and there's one of them right there, and you just can't beat this place. But the main reason that people tell me, I said, for all of these things, they want these relationships, they want to work with these technical colleges, because there's so much action there right now. Action that was not there before. There's a new world out there, a new world of manufacturing, building things, and it's important for national security to be able to do that. But these things didn't exist 30 years ago. This has changed. This is a new place and new opportunities for us. When I asked them, what is the main reason? If you could say one thing, they said, that's easy. But I have to say three. It's the people of South Carolina. They say someone from South Carolina gives you their word and shakes your hand, you can take it to the bank. You don't have to write it down. Whether it's an employee going to work or be on time, someone that's a contractor working with you, no matter what it is, suppliers, anybody, when they say they're going to do it, they'll do it. And that's why they come here, among these other reasons. So my point is, we're on top of the world. And if you need any proof of that, just look out the window. From where we are right now, it does not get any better than this. So what we have to do is use our heads and don't mess it up. Years ago, I was up in the Capital City Club. Y'all may have been there in Columbia. It's up on top of one of those big buildings, big glass window. Looks out over something like this, over the university, over the Congaree River, and all the grass and green and all that. And it's Christy Todd Whitman, who was the head of the EPA for a number of years and for 2 terms governor of New Jersey. We were talking about some of what we're talking about now. And I said, this is just the greatest thing. She says, you really do have it all, but I hope you don't mess it up. So our job is not to mess it up. Our job is to think big. You think big or go home. Think big. No power in a small idea. We're not that elephant. We have the power to do many, many things. If we keep the taxes low, get the regulations off the people, keep the people safe, and have the best schools in the whole country, there is no stopping us. And the centerpiece for doing all of those things is economic growth and prosperity. That is the center. Without that, none of these other things will happen. And if we have economic growth and prosperity with good jobs and happy people going to work, what happens? Drug usage goes down, crime goes down, opioid use goes down, domestic violence goes down, marriages go up, divorces go down, everything gets better. We can't control the weather, but that's about all we can control. And I hope you noticed when Florence came, we got the best team. Y'all would be proud of the people in the counties and the cities. And right now they're back at the Emergency Management Division, collaborating, talking, constant communication on the Hurricane Michael that may come our way and Hurricane Florence that did. But we were well prepared for that, and part of it is because of this collaborative spirit and these relationships that our people have with each other. We just work together well. We're smart, talented, and we do what we say. So that's my story. Like the great Alice Hawkins says, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And I hope that you will stick to your guns and let your imagination go. Dream big. Tell the children to dream big. I tell them all the time, anytime in front of a young audience, is this is where you want to be. You will never go anywhere in your life that's as good as this place. This place is where you want to be. So I'm happy to be here with you to celebrate what's happening here. This is gorgeous. I can't believe this has been built since last time I was here. That's quite and played 7 games already out here. It's wonderful and getting better. So y'all, thank you for inviting me. I look forward to being back.